In this lesson, we're going to look at getting our drums up and running. Now, this takes quite a long time. When I first listened to the song Rather Me, I thought, this is going to be really, really easy. It's going to be such a fantastic one for the kids to do. But actually, as I've gone through this, there's some really complex parts, even in this first track. So it's really important that you just take your time, try and get all the information from the score in, and then find all the rest of the bits and pieces that kind of are there just by listening. So how I've gone about this, firstly, let's just create a new track. So just by pressing this button here, you would just then create a software instrument. After that, we're going to look for a suitable drum track. Now, I'm using Ultrabeat for this. I really like Ultrabeat. I just think it's a fantastic choice. So if we click on this little drop down, you then go down to the Ultrabeat panel, which is just here. Now, you've got a couple of options. You've got stereo and multi-output. For mixing purposes, I would go for the multi-output, and that's how I've set mine up. And I'll show you why I've done that as a multi-output in just a minute. But set it up as a multi-output, and we'll get to the rest of that in a sec. Now, from here, we can look at the interface. The interface, on first glance, looks really, really confusing. And it kind of is, and it takes a little bit of time to get used to this. But the best thing about Ultrabeat is this section here. If you click on this and then scroll down to where it says all drum kits, it's got some predefined drum kits already. Now the one that I'm using is this Boutique 808, and it's a really nice choice. And we've got a kick drum, which is nice. It's kind of electronic-y, but it's kind of a little bit more natural than a lot of the kind of house drum kits you would find. So, and then we've got this snare. And then another part that we've got for this track is a closed hi-hat, then an open hi-hat, and then we've got this ring out cymbal. So just 5 parts. Now, if you select one of these, it gives you this interface. Now this interface is unique to what's selected here. So if I click on the kick drum, you'll see that this is completely different to the snare, and then it's again different to the hi-hat. This is really important because when you come to tweaking some of these parameters, it's really important to make sure you've got the right one selected, or you can very easily mess up what you've already done on a different channel, okay, or a different track. One of the things that you will find that you have to do, so let's come down to this kick drum. The first thing you'll probably want to do is tune your drum. Now, because we're in G sharp minor, you may even want to tune that to G sharp minor. It might sound a bit unnatural, so be very careful with that. Have a little play around, and you can just move this dial, or you can just click and drag up and down and get the tuning that you want. The next thing you're probably going to want to do is change the envelope. Now, the longer this envelope, the more decay it's going to have, and the longer that the sound is going to carry on for. So if you want a sharp, punchy sound, then you're going to want to make this smaller. You have some zoom parameters here as well. If you want to make this more visual, because if you kind of zoom all the way in, if I show you this, you can see that actually it's the same curve, but when it's zoomed all the way out, it obviously looks a bit different. So you can zoom in and out, and it gives you a kind of representation on how that works. The final section that you're probably going to want to use is this kind of filter section, just to enhance the kind of the texture or the tonal sound of the actual instrument. Now, what I'll do below this lesson, this video, is just supply you with my screenshots from each of my presets. But remember, this is my starting point. This isn't where I'm going to end up. And this is what you really need to think about this. Actually, it's really important to get the parts down fairly as quickly as you can, and then you're going to have to keep coming back to edit it as your piece starts to take shape. So just take that into consideration. When you look at my screenshots, they are the first iteration, not the last. So I will be tweaking as I go, and I'll probably show you a few more tweaks as I go through this. Now, another window you've got here that you may or may not use is this full view window, and it brings you to a pattern area. If you just turn the pattern area on, you'll see that it'll play. Okay, not really appropriate. We don't necessarily need this, but some people prefer to do their drum patterns in a pattern sequencer and then use this little button here to drag their patterns to the actual stage as they finish them. Now, Ultrabeat has lots of presets and lots of empty slots. This is a full slot, so what you want to do is click on this arrow, scroll down to one that's empty where it doesn't say SQ, and it will give you an empty region. So if you wanted to, you can start inputting your kick drum for Rather Me. And then you can maybe do your snare for the section that needs the snare. And you can start building up from this. And once you've got your track, you can then just click on this arrow here. Let me just show you this. So click on this little dial here, and you can just click, drag, and now you have that pattern. One thing you're going to want to remember if you're using this, to turn it off. Once you've finished creating your patterns, turn it off. If you don't, what you'll find is it will keep playing. So even though there's nothing here, it will keep playing on the track, okay? Once you turn that off, the playhead will carry on and it won't make any difference. So there's the first thing, Ultrabeat, and just choosing a preset that suits your need. Now, this track doesn't have any drums at the beginning and it kind of slows down towards the end, okay? Let's go over to the score and just have a look at how to read this stuff. So if I open up, let's find the bar that I'm going to work from. So the bar that I'm going to work from is this one here, which is bar 28. So let's come to bar 28. Oh, excuse me, I'm just setting up my loop barrier. Come over to bar 28, double click on this track here and it brings up my piano roll. I'm just going to show you where all of these things go. And most of the Ultrabeat drums are programmed the same so that each one will fit on its own channel, okay? And then there's this crash there. Okay, so let me just arrange my window ever so slightly. So here it is here. So this is what you've got so far. Now this bottom line here, this one here, is the bass drum. And you can see it's a 4 to the floor pattern. So it's going 1, 2, 3, 4. And that pretty much happens whenever the drums are playing. And you can see that represented here. So if I zoom out just a little bit more, and you can see there's my pattern there, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that straight away is where we're going to get the bass drum pattern from. So next one up, let me just bring this out over there. The next one up is this snare. So this one on this middle line, which would be the C line if you're reading on treble clef, is your snare. So let me just show you the snare. So the snare is on this D note, okay, and this is kind of on 2 and 4. Apart from there's a kind of fill later on in the track, but apart from that, it will go on the 2s and the 4s. This next one, this F sharp, is our closed hi-hat. Now, a closed hi-hat is represented by just this cross. So where it's a cross, that's a closed hi-hat. When you see the cross with a circle, that means an open hi-hat. So although they're written on the same line, the cross on its own is closed. The cross with a circle around it is open. So you'll see what we've got here where it goes closed, open, closed, open. Oh, sorry, this is the crash. Open is there, my bad. Okay. And that's pretty much how to read this. There's a couple of confusing notes here. So you've got these semiquavers, which are kind of confusing. But if you think about it, if you lay down your bass drum first, and you can see that these kind of go in between in the grid as well. So you can kind of work out where they go. And if I just show you how I've got them laid out. So here's my snare and my bass drum, and you can see that they come in on this grid. And once again, I will share all of these just so you've got what I've laid down. If you don't read clef so well, or you don't feel up to that, then I will obviously give you all of these screenshots so you can input it using the piano roll. Okay, next thing on my list is how to make this into a multi-track. As said before, we created this as a multi-output. So if we select Ultrabeat, you're going to want to do this so that you can actually mix it later on. So when we created Ultrabeat, we created it as a multi-output. This gives us some options. So over here where it says output, we can actually assign each of these instruments to its own output, allowing us to edit further. So let's just do that. So the kick, if we give the kick to this one here, actually let's give the kick to the main, which is the one it's on. So that's just 1 and 2. Let's give the snare to the next one, which is 3 and 4. Let's give the closed hi-hat to the next one, which is 5 and 6. Let's give the open hi-hat to 7 and 8. And let's give that final cymbal to 9 and 10. So now we've set these up, and you'll see that it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I think I've missed one. Never mind, I'll go back to it if I've missed one. Not to worry. So now we've got that set up, we can actually make them into their own channels. And how you do this is come up to this mixer button, and I'll just make this a little bit bigger. Now, this is our drum kit. And see this little plus button, we can click that 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we've got 5 tracks. This first one is going to be our bass drum, so I'm just going to rename it bass drum. This next one is going to be our snare. This next one is going to be just a hi-hat, so we just call it HH. This next one is an open hi-hat. And then this final one is a crash. Now we've got them labelled up, we can obviously see them a little bit better. The next thing is just to make sure that they're assigned to the right track. So this is 1 and 2, which is just ultra beat. Next one is 3 and 4. Next one is 5 and 6. Next one's 7 and 8. Next one's 9 and 10. So when I play, each of these should now have its own instrument on it. And that's brilliant, because as you can see, rather than the one we would have had just before, just using this channel strip, now we've got a channel strip for each and every one, which means we can set up panning, we can set up volume, we can set up effects, and we can set up dynamic processing, which is actually a lot better. There's only one other thing that I want to show you guys before I let you guys crack on and have a look at the screenshots and stuff. Is now we've got all these extra tracks. You'll notice that on this track here, we still only see 1. And this can be a problem when you're trying to solo the track. So if we come back to the mixer, and we just click and drag, so we select all of these tracks. And if we right click, there's a little button here that says create track. When we do that, all of those tracks will be created on the timeline. So let me just close that now, and you'll see I've got all of these tracks. There's one more thing that we should do, and that's make them controlled via one solo button. So we've got the solo button here. If we click, and I think it's shift, so we've got all of these now selected. Now if we right click, there's a button here that says make these into a group. Now let me just see if I can find this button. There it is, create track stack. So click on this, and now what you're going to find, it says, okay, which one of these do you want? And we want a summing stack, okay? So press that, and now it's made it into a group. Now this is really cool, because you can press play, and let me just do that, and it'll all play. But when I mute them, it mutes them all. Okay, so we've got full control as if it was a normal track, but we've got all the extra parameters so that we can mix it a lot further. That was quite a deep lesson. I'm sorry I went quite far into that. Your mission now is just to come in and create all of these tracks and start inputting your notes. Just in case you're unsure of how to create containers in Logic, what I would do is just zoom in, right click, and then create empty MIDI region. Once you've got this, you can then start creating a MIDI region just by double clicking, and then you can input your notes. Let me just undo that because I've deleted all my other stuff. One other thing, sorry, is try looping the sections as well. So that way, if you press play now, you can then stop it. You can unsolo the track, listen to what's happening in the actual track. And then once you've got that, you can then go back to your track and you can input some more of the notes and so on. It's a really good point of call just to reference the original track and see what's going on. And whenever in doubt, you can always zoom in and just see if you're in time, see if you've got things right.